Hi, everyone, and welcome to Get Hired Live. I hope you enjoyed our new intro music. I know that our team worked hard on it, so it sounds great. And I'm so happy that you are here joining us for another wonderful conversation. I want to start, as I always do, by asking you to introduce yourself in the comments. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and also a little bit about your job search. So what you are looking for in the job market, maybe you're looking to move into a new field, maybe some things that you're struggling with. And then once you introduce yourself, look for other people who are sort of in the same group as you. So, maybe they're looking to move to the same location that you are. Maybe they're looking to go into the same field as you. And just keep having those conversations and connecting with each other. After the show, some of the best messages that I get are from people who actually end up job searching together once they meet in the comments of the show. And it's really rewarding to see that people can help each other do that. And we have such a great show today. And I want to welcome some of the people who are joining us already. There's many of you in the stream. We have Stephen from New Jersey, Elmo from California, Kathy from Sugar Land, Texas, Mohammed from Chad, Anna from Poland, and I think I saw Chris from South Carolina, Marina from Las Vegas, and Anoop from Japan. So welcome to all of you. And like I said, keep those comments coming, keep those questions coming about your job search, because we have a great guest today. And in fact, I want to bring her onto the stream now, and it's Lindsay Mustain from Talent Paradigm. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hi, Andrew. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. It's wonderful to have you on the show. And, before the show, we were talking a little bit about, what job seekers need to endure through this difficult time. And a lot of it is sort of that resilience and, being in a good mental space to do a job search. So can you tell us a little bit about why that is important for a job seeker to build up the resilience and also just be in the right frame of mind to do a job search?
Absolutely. I like to say that having clarity and checking mindset is the beginning of any successful job search. If we don't start with the end in mind of what we really want to get out of it, that's the first part of clarity. And then we have to have resilience along the path, because job searching is like a roller coaster. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be a straight line. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs and curves and unexplained spirals that are going to happen. And being resilient through the process is pretty huge. So one of the things I like to say in this is that as a job seeker, you have to realize that your value is intrinsic and not extrinsic. And what I mean by that is that as a human being, as a person with all of these innate skills, talents, and abilities, you are perfectly marketable as you are in this very minute. You do not have to do anything. Go get more degrees, go get more education, go get more experience. Everything you have right now is powerful enough to change your job search. The problem that you might be having is the ability to understand how to tell that narrative so that it resonates with the person across from you. So when I talk about being intrinsically, having your self-worth be intrinsically tied, means I take care of me. I know that I am awesome at what I do. I am the expert in what I do, and that I am deserving, and that I'm going to pursue a path regardless of whatever happens along the way that will help me elevate and up-level my career. If you start with that kind of mantra and that mindset, that is a difference than, oh my God, I need a job. I am desperate. Please pick me. I can't feed my family. And these are two different energies around job search. And I find the majority of the people are on that ladder versus the other people who are calm, collected, what we call the highest caliber candidate. They're the people who are very deliberate. They understand their intrinsic value. They also understand that if I present myself at the highest level, then therefore I will receive a job opportunity, and multiples typically, and that it will be the highest salary I ever made at the ideal target company for me. And it changes the energy of desperation, which is a validation seeking behavior, to a place of empowerment that says, you know what, when those doors shut, that's just me being really clear that that wasn't the right opportunity for me. And a lot of times, here's one other big thing I want you to know. When somebody says no to you, I want you to remember it's just a no right now. No right now. It's not you are not shut down as a person. You're not shut down as a human being. You're not shut down for opportunities in that company typically. existentially, you'll never ever have an opportunity. That's not what it is. It's a no for right now. And the people who get back up and bounce off of it, instead of finding you're like smashing on the pavement like a dead bug on a windshield, instead of going from there to saying, okay, I see this as an opportunity for me to go back and hit it harder. And then I'm going to make you feel bad that you didn't hire me later because I am so awesome. That is how I want you to take that mindset here, is that's how powerful I am in what I do.
Yeah. And when you talked about sort of experiencing a no from a job application, I remember speaking to Karamo from Netflix's Queer Eye last year, and he said something about being thankful for the no's you receive in your life, and about sort of sitting down and saying, okay, this is a no, but what is the positive side of this? So, does this give me a chance to go explore something that I really want to do? Things like that. So, no's are really interesting, and people take them in so many forms. And one thing that I'm wondering too is, because you mentioned the challenges people face, as a job seeker, and they could fall into that latter category where things are really rough. And obviously things are really rough right now for a lot of people. And things, are just rough in general around the country and around the world. So what are things that job seekers can do to build resilience throughout the job search, and not necessarily remain positive, but to sort of say, okay, I can get up tomorrow and I could keep doing this?
Absolutely. Okay. So I love this question because it is some things that people are struggling with right now, which is, how do I continue to stay motivated, challenged, and excel in my job search right now? So I want to start by the power of mindset. And the first thing I want you to deal with is the idea that there is a lack thereof or a growth mindset. So scarcity versus growth mentality. You guys have probably heard this before, but I want you to think that career opportunities are not like pie. There's not a limited amount of slices. Everybody has an opportunity to do this if they understand how to truly market themselves. But you have to believe that first. If you believe that there aren't going to be opportunities, guess what? That's going to be your reality. You have to see that. And I'm going to give you an example here right inside of my own business. I had somebody who was a former intern of mine 6 years ago. And she came to me and she said, Lindsay, I'm getting ready to make some changes. I'm not sure what's next, but I thought maybe might be a match in your company. And I definitely wasn't hiring. Let me tell you today that that person is on my team for a job that I was not hiring for, because they were able to demonstrate value. And so when you look at the pool out there, I want you to remember that as long as you can understand your value and your worth, and you realize that opportunities are not finite, that means that you'll have opportunities to go out and seek other things. So let's talk about structure here. So the first thing, mindset means, one, I have to believe the opportunities are out there. If you believe there are none, there aren't. So first issue. So that's the first one. If you believe there are going to be opportunities out there, yes. And let me tell you, at the very top, 11% increase in revenue for companies that over the pandemic. So when people are like, they're not hiring, like, the wrong companies aren't hiring, okay? Because they're trying right now to survive. Don't be trying to go to a company that's trying to survive. Go to a company that's thriving during this time. That's another way to target what you do. Okay, this another part that you really need to understand is, what is it about me that's truly marketable? Okay, so this is part of the deep dive. What's marketable? And it's not going to be your servant leadership or your soft skills. It's going to be your impact and scope, that you either increased revenues, saved money, or impacted a process of, where it drove innovation. Those are going to be the three kind of pieces that'll make it so that people will start to see you as this higher level candidate. And the last thing here is structure and routine, because right now we have a really big challenge with every day blends into the other. And I'm sure some of you can understand that. I am a work at home mom. I have 2 children that are at home schooling. I'm in Seattle, so they're at home schooling here. It's not perfect. It's not perfect at all. Some days it's like, I feel like we're in Groundhog Day, and I'm sure some of you could understand that. But every day I set aside 3 hours of my morning to put me first, to do the thing that I need to do in order to take care of my life. And this is what we call the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule, which says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. If you spent 2 hours every morning aligning yourself to be the best version of you and taking inspired action on your job search that elevates that narrative about who you are as a candidate, that's the structure. And if you can win those first 2 hours of the day, you've won the rest.
Definitely. And, we have Gail in the comments saying that it is all about mindset. So you have some fans with that in there. And I thank you so much for the advice. And, for those of you who are just joining us, I know we have a lot of people in the stream. We have Lindsay Mustain from Talent Paradigm joining us. And, we have Katie from Arizona, Via from Georgia, Marilda from Brazil, Matt from North Carolina, Anil from Dubai, Yadilla from Michigan, and Oscar from Virginia, and so many more. So keep introducing yourself in the comments and get your questions in, because we're going to be taking them right now.
Yes.
So, we have a question here from Michelle, and it's such a great question. And she wants to know, how do you amplify your experience when it seems hiring managers are looking for degrees? And I think, some people feel that, they need X degree or a certain degree to get into a job. So how do you overcome that obstacle?
Oh my goodness. This is again, first a constraint of your mind before it is an actual constraint in reality. And so I'll tell you as a hiring manager. So my background is I've spent 10 years coaching, more than 18 years in talent acquisition recruiting. I became Amazon's most visible employee. I've hired over 10,000 people. I've looked at 1 million resumes and I wrote the book on it. Okay. So that being said, the problem is for most people that they think the degree is required. If I were to go to a hiring manager, and this is what I would sit across from, I'd say, okay, Mark, the hiring manager, Mark, I have somebody who is exactly perfect for this and has everything that you need, except they don't have a degree. Is that a make or a break it? And I have never once had one person say, oh my gosh, absolutely not. Now this is where we're going to go, wait, Lindsay, but what about Amazon who says you have to have a degree? I hire people at Amazon that did not have degrees. This is a wish list. Okay. Now here's how you overcome this is you're playing a different game when you're playing the apply game. The apply game is meant for you to lose. And if you want some training on that, you can reach out to me on my profile, but it's meant to do that. And the reason why it's meant to be a glorified filing system. That's how applicants tracking systems are set up. I know because I put them in companies. So that's why you're finding that when you want to empower yourself as a candidate, as a job seeker, we don't just go and post a job and just hope the right person falls into it. As a high performance organization, we're going to go out and find those people. That means we're hunters. This is where you have to really think about what it is that I bring, because experience beats skills every time. And what I mean by that is that how many CEOs start at the very bottom and don't have the degree? In fact, most of our big tech 5, that's their story. And yet we say we required degrees. I want you to know that it can be overcome as soon as you demonstrate impact and scope, and that what you create is much larger than having a piece of paper that's on your wall.
Wonderful advice. Yeah. And in fact, some of the most successful people I know in terms of people who've gone on to be leaders in their companies don't have degrees, because they've proven themselves and they've been able to sell themselves and say, this is what I could do for you based on my past experience and all that other stuff. So I think that's really wonderful advice. So hopefully that helps Michelle out. And, we again,
can I have one little thing in there too?
Go
I
for it.
At night for 10 years and didn't have a degree, and I did all the things in my career. It was a massive check the box. It was not a requirement. And so anybody who tells you that, it just hasn't been on the inside to know what I'm sharing with you right now.
Definitely. And, we have Andrea in the stream, and Andrea is a great guest of Get Hired. So thank you for your questions, Andrea. And, she's basically saying, especially in this environment, it seems like companies hold all the cards in the hiring process. And I think a lot of people feel that now, especially with the power dynamic shifting. What if they sort of lowball you on an offer? How do you counteract that? Because, as someone who's been in talent acquisition, that's always sort of a thing that makes, talent nervous when they have to counter an offer. And I assume that's especially sort of, worrisome now. So how do you counteract an offer or counter an offer?
I'm just going to put out here, again, this is a belief that right now people will not pay for your talent. But in 2020, my clients on average earned $52,000 more after working with me in the middle of a pandemic, some of them being unemployed 4 years. Okay. How? Okay. 1, you have to be the candidate of choice, which means everything you do in your intentions, the way you act, feel, and show up personally, professionally, and on social media has to be aligned to this higher level narrative about who you are. Okay. If you don't have that, then of course they're going to lowball you, because it's like being on a commodity marketplace. So let me give you an example. When you think about Thanksgiving time, I don't know about you, but a lot of us were making Thanksgiving dinner for the first time on their own. That would be me. And so I needed to go and I purchased, and I need to buy sugar. Okay. Well, when I go to the sugar aisle, there's a million kinds of sugar, it just depends, but I'm talking about granulated white sugar. Okay. What sugar am I going to buy? I'm going to pick the one that's on sale. I'm imagining this, the shelf. I'm going to buy the one that's on sale. Okay. So most of the time, a company is in their best interest to pay you as least amount of as money as possible. It's financially and fiscally responsible. Okay. How do you change that power dynamic? It's when you become the thing that they must have in order to change and transform their business. When you become that thing, then money becomes a zero object. And I know that seems crazy, but we have somebody, one of our last people who got it, they got a $200,000 increase by just understanding how you become the thing that they desperately need in order to transform their business. Okay. So when you become a solution, which all of you are not a subject of like all the tasks you did. If you're playing a task game, then you are going to be on the commodity marketplace. When you become an asset, this is how you get that higher salary. So when it comes to the point here at the very end, you have acted in a certain way, what we call it a purple squirrel in the recruiting industry, which is the most desirable, highly qualified candidate that we would search the globe for. And then we do everything in our power to get to them. So by the end of the time, when they get to the point of offer, you guys are the fish on the line. I want you to remember, we put a lot, like when you buy fishing line, and I don't know much about this, but I know you buy heavyweight for when fish pull apart because you want to catch the keepers. There's going to be resistance in your best people. You need to understand how to negotiate with the right person to get the right amount of salary. When that's, I'm going to tell you, it's not the CEO and it's not going to be the hiring manager typically. It's going to be your HR person who's going to be your advocate in here because we have negotiated all the time. We know that people get triggered through this process. And so you have to say the right things to the right people. So when you're getting lowballed, you just need to really have the courage to say, is this offer negotiable? If you've done everything right up until that point, then they'll say one of three things. No. Which you say, thank you so much. Let me have some time to consider this because they might come back and offer you more money if you do that. The second part, you might say, well, maybe what are you looking for? So you better have an educated answer. And the third one, which is most common, which is probably, let me see what I can do for you. That's what our clients do. And that's when we begin this conversation. So there is a strategy here, but the biggest thing is you have to elevate your candidacy. And then you have to be willing to say, is this offer negotiable? And women, ladies out there, please, my God, I want to give you more money. I'm not going to give it to you until you ask as a recruiter. I cannot just like, oh, it's a handout. Here's all the money. No, it's in my best interest to offer you the lowest amount. It's in your best interest to ask for the highest amount. And then we meet in the middle.
That's great. And now, and as a follow-up, so no matter what the offer is, should you ask if it's negotiable?
Yes.
Okay.
The only time when you should not ask if its offer is negotiable is if they've already told you some point this offer is zero negotiable. And this is where I want to say to employers, why are you doing that? What a waste of talent that you just would close the door on somebody that you worked so hard to get on to that point. So you pay the right amount of money for the right investment. If you want the best, pay for the best, okay? Don't pay the bare minimum because when you hire like that, that's when we're like, you have two, but one person would have totally transformed your business, and two, instead, you just have two people running around having zero actual value-added contribution into your company.
Yes, definitely. And, again, for everyone who's just joining us, this is Get Hired Live. I'm Andrew Seaman from LinkedIn News, and we have Lindsay Mustain from Talent Paradigm. And, Lindsay, the next question that I want to ask you is, it comes from... let's see here. Sorry. Mark, who wants to know how to parlay volunteering as valuable experience on a resume. And I think some people are experiencing this with gaps in their resume because, they've been out of work for a while, but they're still doing volunteer work. How does that fit into your resume and your experience?
Yeah, actually, so I have a podcast coming out next week where I talk about this in particular with somebody who's hiring right now. And they're hiring 100 recruiters, so stay tuned for that. That just goes to show, again, people are hiring. You just need to look under the right stones. And so when you are, let me try this. Andrew, do you mind reframing it for me again? I feel like I got a little bit off topic on this one.
No worries. Yeah, no. So it's basically with volunteer experience.
Volunteer. Thank you. I was like free experience. When I say free, we didn't get paid. So I want you to know that volunteer experience is incredibly powerful in changing the narrative about what it is that you do. A lot of times people are like, oh, you've been unemployed for 18 months, 4 years, 8 years. These are all people that we've worked with. And we're like we were just sitting on our couch eating bonbons, okay? We were doing something. And so a lot of times people are like, I have this gap, I have this gap, I have this gap. This is why I'm going to I was like, the real issue is really not the volunteer work, right? It's the gap that we're trying to figure out how to discuss. The story behind the gap is what matters. It's not the actual gap. Okay. So how do you fill that gap is with value added time. How can you do that? Well, one, I usually say like an entrepreneurial venture is a really good idea. Go and volunteer your time at something that aligns with who you are and what it is that you do. A nonprofit will happily take you up on your skills. In fact, it might even create an opportunity for you. And if anything, it becomes a networking strategy. But here's the deal. You need to figure out how to tie it into the narrative of what it is that you do, because the story of what you tell, like we can tell a blooper reel of our career, like, well, I was fired here and then this, and then now I've been looking for 18 months. Or we can say, yeah, for the last 18 months, I've had the opportunity and luxury to stay at home with my kids, get them aligned to homeschool, and I've been volunteering my time at XYZ organization while I really determine what's next for me in my career. And do you see how much different that sounds than a place of, I've had the luxury of choosing to do this versus I'm finally just kind of tiptoeing in and maybe you have something, can you help me out? Different energy between both of those structures.
Definitely. And I think also what's important to remember, especially now, is that gaps on resumes are a little bit more palatable to hiring managers. I know we did a survey at LinkedIn of hiring managers, and the vast majority said, if you were laid off a year ago because of COVID, it's not going to be a huge issue. And I assume that even if you were laid off before that, you're going to be able to sort of get additional forgiveness because of what's happening.
I would say that for the right people, it totally is. And so this is where you have to, I always talk about 3 alignments here: the right job, the right company, the right salary. This is an idea of right on the right company. And so if a company is going to say, I've seen some of you, right, and you're like, Lindsay, people are like, why are you unemployed? And you're like, hello? Welcome to 2020. Yes. Yeah. And so just know, again, it's going to be the story that you tell around there. But yeah, no, in fact, gaps are not a bad thing. In fact, when somebody has 20 years of continuous experience and they've had 3 jobs, the first thing I think as a high performance recruiter is, what were you doing for 20 years that didn't up-level you more than 3? Okay. So a lot of times when we see these moves, I want you to think of it as a strategic move in your career as a way to up-level and climb the career. And it's not a ladder, it's a lattice, but to climb the lattice in a different way. And that's how you can restructure it. It takes time to regroup and decide what you want to change and pivot into it. So again, it's just part of the narrative of what it is that you share about your story here. That's really powerful. But gaps are the gap. The problem who has the gap is you, not me.
And, you talked a lot about the applicant tracking system, or not a lot, but you mentioned it earlier. And, it's obviously a controversial topic. And can you, we have a question from Ingrid, which basically asks about the software HR uses to screen or qualify a candidate. What are the best ways to use keywords? So can you tell us a little bit about what applicant tracking systems are? And then also sort of, what job seekers should know about them? Because I think a lot of times people—
there's so much misinformation out there. Yes, this nebulous, magical applicant tracking system that you feel like controls your own destiny. Okay, so let me just tell you what an applicant tracking system. So ATS system, you might hear the bots in HR bots. This is an applicant tracking system. I'm going to tell you what it really is. It's a glorified filing system that allows me as a recruiter to document the process that I put you through so that you can't sue me for going through a different strategy. Okay, now that we have the basis here, it's not evil or not evil. It is seriously just a database of your information. It's where we put all of your resumes. Like when you say we keep your resume on account or whatever, it's inside of an applicant tracking system. So we do this as a government compliance thing. That's the only reason we're doing it. That, and the second part is to create workflow. And so to make it a little bit easier, we put you into this because most of the time, 80%, and I don't even know, this is pre-recession, more than 80% of people aren't minimally qualified. Okay. So, and we've made a lot of easy apply buttons that just complicate the issue for everybody. So if you know, what we've done is we've made it really easy for people who are not qualified to do jobs to apply to them, which makes all of our recruiter lives difficult. Okay. And this is why applicant tracking systems, you go into there and it's where resumes and dreams go to die. That's what I like to say, because it's not the likelihood of me going and searching for you. It is in there. It is in there. You need to have a really strong resume, but I'm likely going to go out and I'm going to look for you on LinkedIn. That's where I'm going to look for you. So I like to say your resume, it's not, if you build it, they will come. Your resume is not going to do anything. Nobody is going to be like, oh my God, Andrew, where have you been all my life? On 2 pieces of paper. They're not going to think that. They're going to think we should probably talk to him or we're not going to talk to him. That's it. Quick second decision here, like 6 seconds. And so that's what the applicant tracking system is. So when you're going through the applying game, the problem is that the likelihood of success is less than 3.6% chance that you're even going to get a call back for an interview. So this is my stat here. You're more likely to get that time that you applied for a job to go and apply to Harvard, and you'd be more likely to be accepted than to even get a phone call back from that company that you applied to for an interview. Not even getting the job, for an interview, you're more likely to get into Harvard. So those stats, this is why it's so hard. And I know it feels like it's evil, but you just need to find a way to beat it.
And when it comes to ATS systems, I think it's important for people to know that there are so many different kinds too, because there are
so true.
Ones that are really advanced, and then there are others that are very rudimentary. And I know I've talked to recruiters before who said, hey, listen, my company does have an ATS system, but they won't pay the subscription fee for all these other features. So, I've talked to some recruiters who, they have an ATS, but they keep Excel spreadsheets to actually keep their workflow because they don't have access. So really, there's no one system that is being used. There are really popular systems, but there's so many out there that, it's really about, not necessarily worrying too much about it, but trying to figure out how do you get around it and how to get your resume in front of people. So I think, that was a great description of applicant tracking.
So true though. Like there's so many different pieces of software out there, but it is really just a spreadsheet. And I always ask a recruiter. So one of the things that I did was HR for HR, especially that's where I started at Amazon. So I would go and hire the people who would do this. And in the HR for HR world, like we're going through applicant tracking systems, and like we have, I'll just give you an example. We had literally millions of people who had been dispositioned, which means given a status in the applicant tracking system. So there are times where like people will be starred. There's times where people will be keyword searched. There's times, but most of the time it's a human being that's either going to see or not see your thing. And I want you to remember why this is a transaction. I apply, hope to hear back. Instead, you need to think about building relationships with people because that's what changes. And here's the deal. Most of you haven't done that. You haven't built the relationships. It's not a ding on anybody right now. It's literally how we've programmed people, like send a connection request and make a friend. That's not true relationship building. And that's where people go wrong here, is that they've thought that they could get by because I was most qualified and I checked these boxes and I applied online. And even that, with everything, the most highest qualified candidates are like, what is going wrong? It's nothing to do with you. It is about a system that has not been designed to help you be successful. It's designed, as all human resources is, which is to mitigate risk for the organization and provide a structure so that we can validate what decisions we did make around our human capital.
Definitely. And, and before we go, we have a few questions here about sort of the idea of telling employers why you left your next job. So we have a question here from Joanne and Andrea, and then also we have one here from Maria. And the question basically is, maybe they were laid off, maybe they went through a restructuring, or maybe they left a job because it just wasn't a good fit for them. How do you get across to a potential employer why you left another job or were let go? How should that conversation go?
So this is one where it's very uncomfortable for most people to be able to talk about it because there's a lot of scars. We talk about these scars about people that job trauma of things that have happened to them. And you may have been terminated, may have been let go. It may have not been a good fit. You may have left because your boss was terrible. All of these stories, I just want you to know that you can't fix what happened. You can only move forward. So now it's going to be, how do I present what it is that I did or did not do to create this? Now, we never want to lie, but when I talk about creating your narrative, if you can show your impact and scope, how many of you have known somebody who is amazing, has been fired? Okay. Everybody should be raising their hand here. Okay. So this is where we tend to believe that somehow our worth becomes less because we had an employer terminate our employment. That just goes to show that employer was not a good match for you. That's all you really need to think about. So when you think about leaving here, is that I want you to talk about what it is I really want to do next in my career. And here's the things that I've done. This is a 3-part strategy in frame disruption. It's an elevator pitch technique that's based on psychology. It's something I teach. I can show you how to do this in a way where you overcome this objection before it even happens. But the goal is that it's always the luxury of choice that you've had. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to say I was fired. You say, well, I've had the opportunity now. Doesn't matter if they gave it to you or you took it to do these things inside of my career, and here's what I'm looking for next. If you take that strategy, and there's some other parts here where we increase the caliber of your candidacy, so people are banging on your door versus you like, just please pick me. When you change that changes the narrative, and you become from a place of not interrogation inside of your interviews, but to a place of really collaborative conversation where we align people again to the right company. That's how that strategy works. But the biggest thing is you want to be honest here, but you never want to be like, again, the blooper reel of what I've done wrong in my career. I want you to talk about the highest level. Like for example, I had a company that was not in alignment with me. I worked over there for a couple of months, and I said, for me at this company, it wasn't a really good match for me, because what mattered most was that my alignment into recruiting the highest caliber people in the nature of what role that they were looking at. And so one of the things, because it was a new role, this hiring manager that I worked with in particular, they're like, no, we just want you focused on interviewing, but not really understanding what the job does. And that was a misalignment for me. So even though it was a very negative situation, that's the story I talked about. So what I'm looking for now is a company that's really aligned into that. This is, again, part of the elevator pitch. Like, what do I really want next in my career? So I overcome objections that have happened in the past.
Yeah, I think that sort of approach is really wonderful to sort of get over the bad story, but also just say, but here's why you should hire me, or this is why this job would be right for me. So I think that's such wonderful advice. And before we go, what advice do you have for people who are job searching right now? It's obviously the beginning of the new year. What is one tip that you wish everyone would walk away from this broadcast with?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to give you the answer for my success in all of my career, becoming a best-selling author, launching a 7-figure business, all the things without having a degree or any, like if you were to go 20 years ago, you would have found me homeless in a shelter. Okay. What's the secret here? It is building a personal brand. Okay. Your personal brand and who you are as a person is going to supersede anything else. And this is why I haven't looked for a job in 12 years. It's because of my personal brand. So when you invest in building your brand and your experience and your authority, notice I didn't say you need to get certifications, degrees, anything else everybody else tells you about this. You don't have to do that. You really need to invest in your personal brand, which means, and the derivative of this, is creating relationships. It's not networking, folks. Networking sounds like, hey, I showed up, so you give me something. Networking is not the right thing. Building true relationships is going to be the differentiator in your career. And just being willing to have those conversations, because most people won't even begin it. They start, and if you're doing this is how you know you're doing it wrong. If you send me a message that says, can you help me find a job? You failed at the networking front. You need to come way back and say, how do I build relationships first? So personal branding built on authentic relationships, that's the differentiator and how you're going to have success. And that's why you'll never need me. I hope you don't ever. I hope you'll never need me, because you will invest in your personal brand now. So that way that opportunities will always come to you.
Yeah, and I think what's nice about a personal brand is it could be anything that you're doing, and just if you're in retail, you could talk about customer service, you could talk about how to handle customers, things like that. So it's something that could be applied across industries. So I think that's really a great tip.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was such a wonderful conversation, so uplifting, and I really hope people were watching the bottom of the screen, because we've been flashing your LinkedIn profile address.
Thank you so much for having me, Andrew. And for everyone who's tuned in, I so appreciate you, and for showing up for yourself today. That says a lot about who you are. And I'd love to have you connect with me on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much, Lindsay. And to all of you, if you missed any part of today's conversation, don't worry, there's going to be a replay right at this link or right in this post. So once we're done, you could scroll back to the beginning and watch it all over again. And then if we didn't get to your question today, or you didn't get a chance to ask a question, or maybe one pops up before next week, we will be doing this again, because we do it every Friday. And next week we have Kamara Toffolo, who is a resume writer and job search strategist. She's really wonderful, and I'm really looking forward to having her back on the program February 5th at noon Eastern time. So be sure to tune in for that. My producers will be dropping a link in the chat, so you could RSVP there, or in the beginning of this post. So if you scroll up or go back to the post, you should see a link to that broadcast. You could just click remind me, and you'll get a notification when we go live. Couldn't be any simpler than that. So please click the link and join us again on Friday. And, as I do every week, I want to ask you to please stay safe. Make sure that you're following all your local health guidelines. You could only get hired. You could only be a good candidate if you're well enough to do so. So be sure you're following all of those guidelines. And until next week, best of luck.